David Edward and Jen Parker discuss Jen's book, A Midlife Crisis.
Jen, how are you?
Hey, good. How's it going?
It's going good. So thank you, number one, for attending the podcast here. And number two, thank you for writing a book about a midlife crisis.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So and that is the title of your book, right? A midlife crisis.
Just a midlife crisis.
Midlife. Oh, you know what? See,
Cut the word middle out, made it shorter.
I always do that. I like my brain tricks me and fills in blanks and stuff if I don't pay like close attention. So
that works. It's definitely what I was going for, was to hit the idea of a midlife crisis. So okay. Perfect.
I have screwed up the title of more people's books, honestly, than I care to admit. But anyway, so a midlife crisis. If I were to at all be prepared for this discussion. So, all right. So let's talk about it. The book has been out for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
What is this book about?
It is about that feeling of just having been sitting around. Well, we're all familiar with it now. This was actually pre-pandemic, but sitting around and being like, what am I doing with my life? Nothing. What am I going to do about that? Nothing. And then how to get out of that feeling to make that less true and feel like you've actually done something, gotten out of your own way and moved off your ass.
And that's a serious kind of, it can be a very serious and dark topic, but this book is not serious or dark.
It's not.
It's actually funny.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's a comedic fiction for sure.
Right. Funny on purpose, right? Which
yes.
I've yet to achieve that, but like, as I told you earlier, many people claim my books are hilarious, but not for the reasons you want them to be. But so talk about how do you get the humor into a book like this, and how do you balance the humor with kind of the seriousness, honestly, of the story?
Yeah, well, a little background on me would be relevant. I've been doing comedy in Los Angeles for over 20 years. I'm an improviser and a sketch comedian, which probably has caused a lot of eye rolls by now from anyone listening. But when you're doing it for a long time, you get pretty good at it and you stop begging your friends to come to shows. So hear me out.
and you still have an audience, which of course
exactly
the pinnacle of comedy success. Yeah,
exactly. So I came into this with a lot of experience in comedy on stage and in writing, but in much shorter format. So that I had honed quite a bit. Then in going into kind of the darker territory, that was new to me with respect to writing. As a person, it was not new to me in life, because that's not new to anyone in life. But I had to vomit all of that on the page first before I could spice in all of the humor that I already knew how to do. So that's how I kind of blended those together.
Interesting. The only thing I know about sketch comedy is that you say yes to everything, whatever it is, you just
nice.
Agree to it, right? And then you just go with it, because it's saying yes is funny. Saying no is not funny at all, even though.
That is exactly right. Yes, yeah. And is the first rule of improv.
Is that right? Yeah, see?
That is right.
I know, I've told you everything I know about it, and I've learned something. So
awesome. I added the and to your yes. At least I could too.
Yeah, yes, and okay. I like it. That's good. All right. So when did you decide that you wanted to write this book?
I decided I wanted to write the book years ago after a really heartbreaking breakup that I have fully recovered from. I was just in a phase in life that I know a lot of us have been in, where I was sitting on my ass. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was fine, but I didn't really have any ambition. But as kind of just a sarcastic, funny person at heart, I just kind of was laughing at it, of being like, nah, I'm not going to do anything. And then I got this idea. I really wanted to write a book. I started vomiting on the page, as many of us do. And it was really sad at first. It was about heartbreak. But as I got through the writing process, I completely recovered from the breakup. And now I just had this material and what I wanted to do with it. I threw out everything in the book that had to do with the breakup, except for the introduction, and started with just the feeling instead, of being like, 3 women, all in their mid to late 30s, one early 40s, having the same kind of feeling, all for very different reasons. And the lead character gets a catalyst to start getting off her butt. Her grandma asks her to find a painting that she created when she was in college. And she doesn't want to do it, but kind of sees this as her way to do her like Reese Witherspoon-like journey in the movie Wild, but she doesn't have money or time to do anything like that. She just got to stay local and find this painting, and it kind of gets her moving, and it gets her 2 closest friends moving.
So did you work out the whole story ahead of time and then kind of outline it, or was this like you just started writing and then the story wrote itself, or what was that process?
That is a good question and something I grappled with a lot. So I've written sitcom specs before, scripts. That is a script for a sitcom that exists, but you're not actually selling it to the show. It's to try to get writing work. When I've done that, I've
Oh.
always done it with the outline, knowing exactly what the story was going to be ahead of time. When I've written sketch, which is a much shorter format, I've always done it the opposite way. I find the funny as I go, and then I throw out everything I don't want. And once I found the funny, now I just flow. So here I tried it both ways. I really tried to outline it first, and I kept getting stuck and I kept getting stuck, and I couldn't do it because I didn't know yet what the vision was going to be, and I was getting in my way. So I went for it. And as I'm sure you have done before, I wrote my whole draft and I had to scrap maybe 2/3 of it. But that's one thing I got really practice at in writing sketches, killing my babies, right? Just being like, hey, I wanted this, doesn't matter, it's out. This is my favorite part, it's out. The premise changed completely. And I had to just go for it.
Yeah, I would think humor would be hard to do in an outline. I mean, I suppose the outline could be a series of situations you think might be funny to drop the characters into, but story wise, it's just because humor is so organic.
Right.
It seems like it would be hard to do that. So did you write every morning, write every night? How long did it take you? What was that
Nah.
process? No,
None of
nah,
that.
nah.
I was not so structured. I tried to be. I really did. I tried all of these like writing hacks you hear about of use the timer for 20 minutes, do that, write for an hour every morning, do that. It didn't fit with my personality and it didn't fit with my life. So instead, what I ended up doing, the only thing I had true success with in terms of process was on days that I could motivate myself, tried to pick a number of days per week, say 3, but I had to kind of go with the flow on that. And I had to pick a number of pages for that day. And that had to fit in whatever time of the day I could make it work. So I found success with that because for me to set a timer for 20 minutes, I can procrastinate my way through 20 minutes in 10 and have nothing on the page and be done with it. But if I force myself to have a page count on a computer, I've got to come up with something. And knowing that I'm going to scrap 2/3 of that couldn't get in my way. I had to just meet the criteria. And some days I was more successful than others in going over the page count.
Interesting. Yeah, and I keep coming back to it because like I said, I've tried to do a few funny things in the book. I can't do it. But with the humor, it's got to be organic because I write on a word count. And there's sometimes I'm like, and I'll go for it. I'm like, I'm having a good day, I'm gonna go for another 1,000 words or whatever.
Yep.
But my writing gets a little flat, but I'm writing thrillers and stuff, so it doesn't matter. I just have to make sure I'm not in a part of the story that is required to, kind of be snappy. But what you're
Sure.
doing, every page, almost every line has to be snappy. So it's
Yeah.
really a process, right? To get it out there and revise. And just like you said, take away everything that's not funny.
Exactly. And I would
Right?
highly recommend for anyone else writing anything comedic, don't worry about the jokes in draft 1. Get to those in draft 2 or 3.
Really?
Because
Okay.
yeah, you got to figure out what you're trying to say first. At least that was true for me. I had to figure out what I wanted to say and I had to hit tone. So
Yeah.
it did come in a bit because I had to hit tone, but I knew that the jokes I was putting in probably wouldn't make it to the final draft.
Now,
And if I focused on that too much in the beginning, I wouldn't have a story. I'd have a list of jokes.
did you know generally how you wanted to end, or where you wanted the characters to wind up, or what you wanted to learn, that kind of thing, or did you know the ending specifically?
I did know how I wanted it to end, but not specifically. I knew the feel I wanted, and that
Right.
feel was that they all landed in a better spot than they started in, but it was a realistic end, and it was not fairy tale and perfect. They still had stuff to work through. They had just progressed.
Right.
So I knew that going in. And then I had to figure out what does that mean for each one of them in their own storylines.
Now, how long did this whole process take you?
Oh God, so long.
And I've had people say my entire life. Like, no, not your whole life. Give me something real.
I'm going to say 4 to 5 years. And that
Wow.
included a year in between where I just couldn't look at it. So if other writers
I see.
listening don't need that, you can significantly cut down on your timeline. But for me, I was too entrenched in it and I couldn't really see it anymore. And I knew I wanted change, but I didn't know what I wanted to change. So I had to just let it sit, go away from it, and come back with as fresh a set of eyes as I could.
I think that's really important. I do that when I write. I
Yeah.
used to think I could bounce between two stories and that would give me time away from the other story. That's not how your brain works at all. But yeah, when you get it done, you've got to step away. A year would be a long time for me to step away.
It's a long time.
But you got to get it out so your brain is not filling in the holes and making what you read and making you think what you wrote is better than what's actually on the page, if that makes
100%.
sense. Yeah,
and for me, I don't know about you, but for me, it was important to me not to have anyone else read it until it was kind of what I wanted it to be, because otherwise I'm letting people's pitches and ideas influence my story before I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I think that's right. Now, speaking of that, though, when you were done, did you get some people to read it and like test readers or whatever, get feedback before you released it?
Yes, I did. I got test readers. I got a script writer,
professional.
Someone who is a professional script writer that I just happen to know through comedy. So I don't have good suggestions of how to find those people because I just knew one. But I know that, people exist on platforms that you can get them. You can hire them to do that. I also got another TV writer that I know to read it and a writing professor that I know. So it was all through networking. But again, those people you can find people to do that for you. I also hired an editor through Upwork.
Absolutely. I mean, my editor is through Upwork too. Yeah. And it took me, she's the third one I found, but she's now done 39 of my 42 books. I mean, she's fantastic. Awesome. So yeah.
Yeah.
Did you take all their advice?
You know what? One of the best pieces of advice that I got from one of them, and that this is my biggest piece of advice for people listening, is he said, take all of the notes people give you that you don't like and just throw them out.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. Because we get so, you get so married to like, oh, this person has this credentials or this expertise, so I should listen to them. But if it doesn't really hit with the story you're trying to tell, throw it out.
Yeah, it's insightful, and I think that's exactly right. The only caveat I add to that, and I throw it out too, which is the right thing to do. But every comment there's some grain of truth in it. So even if it doesn't change maybe what you're doing, you kind of think, well, okay, so people maybe look at this a little differently or whatever. So it's like a note you put in your head, but you don't necessarily muck up your story with it. Unless if everyone's telling you the same thing and you're trying to be commercial, you might have to, bite the bullet. But so was any of the feedback less than positive?
No, actually I had really support. Well, it was really, that's not true. From the editor for sure, because she was real with me and I was hiring her and she didn't know me.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
From my sister, very less than positive, because again, she can be really real with me, but the other people were really going for how to help make it more successful. So while of course there were things that were trash about my earlier drafts, 100%, by the time they were reading it, it was a bit farther along. So they could just kind of give me encouraging ways to make it better.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the really negative stuff, you've got to really get used to it, and it's very helpful. But it can also talk about demoralizing you. I mean, some of the reviews I get, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. And then 2 or 3 days later, I come back to it. But it's like, well, that's really mean. Why would you spend so much time being mean like that? What kind of energy are you putting out there? But anyway,
yeah, and that's a mixed bag too, because I would say with reviews, I've been lucky of having really good reviews, but also what that tells me is that the book has not yet reached a large audience of people that are just out there in the world, right? I mean, it's more likely that it's gotten to people through networking. So they're taking the time to leave a review as like a nod to me and the book. But to get a complete stranger to leave reviews, you're going to get a hugely mixed bag, but it also kind of shows success of your of your circulation.
Good for you. Good. I mean, look, that's a very realistic, real world view. Because there are people out there, or at least people have attached to me that don't read them, but give 1 stars and then say something mean. It's like,
oh God,
why? But just
the
why?
Joys of the internet. That's such a. And
I've got on Goodreads. I see them. I see people like they go through all my books and they hit 1 star, 1 star, and so the same person in every review is like within the last. I was like, okay, but people like to see critical reviews too when they're making I don't it's just it makes the good reviews seem more real or something like that. So
that's a really good point. I totally agree.
So who is this book for?
It is definitely the genre formerly referred to as chick lit. I love to say it's for everyone. It's going to hit the most for people who identify as female and are in their 30s or 40s. That's who it's going to hit the most.
Okay.
And people who want to laugh and want to laugh at themselves.
Now the book's been out about a year, a little more than a
Mhm.
year, right? Came out in
Yeah.
I'm looking over here, June of 2021.
That's right.
So yes, about was that 15 months or so. So has anything surprised you about having the book out? Any comments you've got, or anything? Just do you like different now that you've written a book?
It's different in the sense of this was a huge task on my soul's to-do list that I didn't even want to do, but it kept coming to me of being like, you have to do this, and now it's accomplished. So it's just like I ran the marathon. It's
Yeah.
different in that way of like, hey, I ran the marathon. But I think the most surprising thing to me, and it shouldn't have surprised me, is that each time I get an individual reach out or some acknowledgement from any human, it hits like 1,000 times harder than it did with me for shorter formats of writing, like
Yeah.
sketch. It's always a huge win to have someone tell you they loved your work. But with the book, it's so much longer and so much more of me went into it that I'm like, I don't even care. I don't care about profits. Like that's profits as a new writer are pretty unlikely, right? Like as your first book, you're not going to like just be the person who wrote the new Game of Thrones. This is not Game of Thrones.
No, it's not going to happen. Yeah, people win the lottery if I hadn't, but no, it doesn't happen.
Exactly. But to see that anyone at all is reading it is a huge win and like elates me. So that was a surprise of being like, I don't care about the numbers. I don't care about the money. The number is greater than 0. It is a win.
Well, so are you working on another book?
I'm not right now.
Good for you. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. My process has always been go with whatever thing pops up in me that I feel like I have to do. So right now I'm back to focusing on improv. That's where my heart's at. But when it comes for me again, when the bug comes, I'm going to be a lot more prepared for it this time than I was last time, having one under my belt.
Yeah. Is there anything you change? So if you do start a second book, is there anything that you would do differently?
Yes, but I think it's things that I would just it's not that I would go into it differently with a specifically different process. I do think, though, just having done it once, I've learned so much that it would cut out a lot of time. And I would probably find an editor earlier than I did in round 1.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And maybe the next book won't take 6 years. I don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, good. All right. Well, so what advice might you have for someone who is kind of, maybe not going through the exact same thing you went through, but they've been mulling around some idea in their head. They think they've got a pretty engaging book. It's interesting, but also might provide insight and be helpful. What advice would you have for them on how to actually turn it from something that they're imagining having done to actually having done?
I'll take the note that that was given to me and repeat it just because I think it bears repeating, which is that as you get ideas from other people, throw them out if they don't hit you the hardest.
Yeah.
And I would say once you start writing, figure out as you go the tone you want to go for and make sure you hit tone first. That's what worked for me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I tell people pick a story you want to know the end of.
That's a good one.
Right.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because many people have started books. It's really not that hard to start a book.
Right.
It's damn near impossible to finish one. So yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
it is. And I think if you're going for comedic, go for the jokes. Make sure you nail your jokes around draft 3. Don't worry about them in draft 1. Probably don't worry about them in draft 2. They will come.
Man, let me tell you, look, God bless you for doing comedy in today's world. I don't know how you're doing it. I love comedy. Don't get me wrong, but there's lots of things I love that that are hard to do now. So good for you. And this book,
I need it. I need it. Keeps me sane.
Well, and if this is your kind of comedy, it's amazing. It's great social commentary, but it's also to me, it's the right kind of commentary, which kind of inwardly focused. So you're not making fun of other people. You're just in funny situations and how you're interpreting them. That to me, that's like classic good comedy. So, and I think you've captured that in here. So
thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks.
All right. Well, Jen, it's been great talking to you. I'll put a link to the Amazon page for your book below this, and hopefully in 6 years when you're done with the next one, we can catch up.
That sounds awesome.
Or if I'm ever in LA, which I never will be, let me know where you're playing and I won't come. Yeah, so.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the subscribe button.